Hi, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Christy, and today we are going to be talking about panic attacks and how to stop one. As a therapist, panic attacks are probably one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. Panic attacks can be scary, and by far one of the most commonly asked questions that I get in my practice as a therapist. Everybody wants to know, what can you do to stop a panic attack? And that's a great question, because every single one of us at some point in our lives has suffered from some type of panic attack. So let's start here. Panic attacks can be frightening and really scary. I've heard of, and I'm sure you know lots of people too, that their panic attacks have brought them to the emergency room, and some people will even say that they feel like they're dying in the middle of when this panic attack happens. So they are very frightening. And for the most part, like I said, everybody has at one point in their life probably suffered from some form of panic or anxiety attack. And everybody's degree of severity it varies. So sometimes it may be very extreme, and sometimes maybe it's less severe. But for the most part, we've all experienced panic from time to time. How do you know if you're having a panic attack? Well, a lot of times people will explain a panic attack as coming on very suddenly, and like it comes out of the blue. And for the most part they don't, but it really doesn't matter for this case. I'm going to describe some of the symptoms that are associated with panic attack. A sudden and intense rush of dread or distress, so feeling like it's coming out of nowhere, feeling dizzy, heart palpitations, sometimes you could feel sweating, racing heart, shakiness, numbness, choking sensation, chest pains, and even problems breathing. There is some good news here, and the good news is that no one has ever died from a panic attack. There's so much research that's been done on panic attacks and where they come from, how they originate, but the good news is, like I said, nobody has ever died from a panic attack. Although it may feel like it, no one ever has. And generally, panic attacks will last anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, with the height of it being about 20 minutes or so. So the good news is, even if you are experiencing it and feeling like you're gonna die, being able to reassure yourself that no one ever has is sometimes really helpful in the middle of a panic attack. So remember that. If you do ever experience a panic attack, one of the first things that I would suggest doing is acknowledging that you are having a panic attack. And this is important because I think when you put a label on it and say this is what it is, that's when you can start reassuring yourself. It's okay, I'm having a panic attack, no one's ever died from this, and I'm going to be okay. It's going to get better. So that is really important. Another important thing that I discourage people to do when they're having a panic attack is do not try in the moment to figure out why the panic attack is happening. And this is for a number of reasons. Have you ever noticed when you're having a panic attack that the more you try and figure out the cause of the panic attack, the more anxious you become when you can't figure it out? And so when you try to do that, all it does is keep you in this spiral that only increases your anxiety. An interesting fact here is when you are experiencing a panic attack, your brain functioning is actually shifting to another part of your brain. So normally, we're having a conversation right now and we're problem solving and we're using most of our frontal lobe to do that, and which is part of in front of your brain here. When you're anxious, your anxiety kicks in and automatically shifts over to another part of your brain called the amygdala. Let's take a look at that. I'm not sure if we're in the right place. Yeah, I think we're in the stomach. Let's try someplace else. Yeah, we're getting closer. This is some brain tissue. We are in the brain. So let me try something a little different. Okay, there we go. This is where we want to be. This is actually an fMRI of our brain, and it's kind of like an x-ray of your brain. And if you could see right here, this is right where your amygdala is. And this is what happens when we go into that fight or flight mode when we're having a panic attack. This spot is activated right there. So let's get back to the video. So remembering what we just talked about, rather than trying to problem solve in the moment, instead what we really need to do is focus on slowing things down and relaxing our brain to a point where it is problem solving again. And when we can get to that point, that's when we can have more insight into maybe what caused the panic attack. And the good thing is, at that point, the panic attack is going to be starting to subside by then. And our goal here is to get your brain and your whole entire body to a place where you're calm and thinking and feeling better. After you've been able to acknowledge that, yes, I am having a panic attack and I don't need to problem solve, what I'd like you to focus on is just your breathing and nothing else. Focusing on your breathing and nothing other than your breathing is going to be so helpful here. I recommend using counted breath techniques when you're in the middle of a panic attack. So let me show you. You're going to take 3, breaths of 3. So you're going to inhale for 3 seconds. You're going to hold your breath for 3 seconds, and then you're going to exhale for 3 seconds. So it's going to look like this. And you keep doing that over and over again, and you could count to 3 in your head. You just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that can be really helpful because it's going to help regulate your breathing. During a panic attack, the very first thing that usually happens is we either hold our breath or we start breathing more rapidly. And as a result of that, during panic, that's when the other symptoms are going to start to occur. So if we're holding our breath or breathing real shallow, our heart rate is going to kind of try and compensate for that. And maybe we'll get sweaty. Maybe our stomach is going to feel a little nauseous, or we're going to be dizzy because we're not getting the right amount of oxygen. So focusing on just the breathing and being able to regulate that is going to actually cut those symptoms in half. When you can regulate the breathing, all of the physiological things are going to start to improve as a result. And when the physiological things improve, the anxiety is going to decrease as well. So really important to know that. And breathing really is key. Now, sometimes I will have people tell me, I try and breathing, it just doesn't work. And when someone tells me that, the more strongly I feel that breathing will work for them, and that it just means that they need to continue to do that even longer. It is very frustrating in the middle of a panic attack to say, to try and help someone just focus on breathing, but it's so true. The more you focus on the breathing, it's going to get better. So remind yourself of that, and you might have to redirect yourself a couple times or 50 times during it, but it will get better. And reminding yourself of that during that time, all I have to do is breathe right now. I don't have to problem solve. You're not able to problem solve at that point. So breathing is really going to be the best thing you can do to get you back to a place where you're calm and collected again. So then when you feel like your breathing is a little bit more regulated, the next step then is going to distractions and using those coping skills. And you've heard about these from lots of people. We all talk about using great coping skills. And if you're not breathing, it's really hard to use a coping skill. It's really hard to maybe take a walk if you're not breathing. So the breathing really is first and foremost in helping to manage a panic attack. What kind of distractions are good for you? It really depends from a day to day. Whatever you find enjoyable. Music, a cool shower, a warm shower, a hot bath. There's so many things that can be helpful here. It's just being able to do something, anything that you find a distraction or enjoyable for yourself. It could be talking to somebody. It could be any of those things. Really, whatever it is that's going to be helpful for you in that moment. Important thing to remember, it's nice to have a list of coping skills, but also keep in mind that sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So not every distraction is going to work 100% of the time. So you might have to skip around in that list and see what works best for you in that moment. And that's okay. If something doesn't work for you one time, it doesn't mean that it's never going to work and it's a bad coping skill. It just didn't work for you in that moment. So keep trying them all. How long do you continue using the distraction and coping skills? You keep doing them until you're not panicked anymore and until you're in a better place where your mind and body feels more calm and relaxed. And for the most part, most people know when that is. Panic attacks can be very, very scary, and it's not unusual after one occurs to feel out of sorts for even, a couple hours, a day, or even a couple weeks afterwards. And this is all normal. Sometimes they can happen more frequently as well. And if this is something you're experiencing where you're having panic attacks more than a couple times a week, I would highly encourage you to go and talk to someone, talk to a therapist or your doctor, just to get some more support on this. You don't have to feel this way, and no, panic attacks are not normal. You'll get through them, but you don't have to live this way. And that's what's so important to remember here. A therapist might help you learn a little bit more about your panic attacks, how to cope with them, and also have more insight into maybe what is contributing to the underlying reason behind your panic in the first place. So I always recommend that, and I think that would be great. So I hope you find this information helpful, and please try it out. I try to always incorporate some kind of interesting, fun things so that you can remember it, especially if you do ever experience panic attacks. And again, I would highly encourage you to talk to a therapist or your doctor if you are experiencing lots of panic attacks, because they are very scary. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe below, and check out my blog, the selfconfidencechronicles.com, and I'll see you next time.